Okay, so this is our lineup today, our topics. And our lineup, we have three Extension Master Gardeners or Master Gardener interns lined up to talk to you. Zoom support, Nancy Miller from the Fairfax County unit is supporting me, supporting us on the Zoom administration, taking questions and letting folks in. And so we are going to begin with Janie Ray. So Janie, over to you, and I will advance your slides for you.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Today, my topic is going to be on hydroponic. It's an alternative way of producing plants. And I'd like to thank all the people that gave me the opportunity to talk about this topic. I'm very excited. Today's discussion will address what is hydroponics, the history of hydroponics, the indoor growing systems, the hydroponics basic setup, and then also the hydroponic growing medium. Also, we're going to talk a little bit because I can grow strawberries in my system as well. And again, it's an alternative way of growing plants. Let's talk a little bit about growing strawberries hydroponically. Strawberries can be grown successfully using a number of different hydroponic systems, and there is a lot of different systems out there. Strawberries grown in hydroponics grows about 40% faster when grown than growing in soil. Strawberries can fruit all year long. It's year around. It provided them with a good growing environment, and we'll be talking about the growing environment. And then the big question is, does hydroponic strawberries taste differently? And since there is no possibility of drought stress, because there's always water in your system unless you forget to put it in there, that strawberries raised hydroponically are richer in vitamin C. So yes, you can grow strawberries. I have grown strawberries and they are very tasty. So let's go ahead, let's talk about what is hydroponics. And I've tried to break it down, the pronunciation of hydroponics. Hydroponic is the art of growing plants without soil. It is a perfect way to avoid heavy back-breaking work. Do you hear that? Such as digging. Also, it controls pest disease, and we also control the weeds. There's no weeds. Okay, over the past few decades, hydroponics has proven an ideal method for both keen and amateur gardeners, commercial, and again, it's just an alternative way of growing plants. It is the future of agriculture. Okay, so let's look at what plants need. Plants need, can you move that up, Liz, a little bit? Plants needs water, light, and nutrients. Okay, in traditional farming, you need the sun, you need the rain or the irrigation, and then the nutrients is found in the soil. And then if you look at hydroponics, you have the growing lights, you have the water tank or reservoir, and then you have what we have called nutrients, which is dissolved in the water. Okay, Liz. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of hydroponics. 1600 BC. Well, let me just go back. The idea of growing plants without soil dates back to the ancient times. Remember the hanging gardens of the Babylon? Those were hydroponic plants. Also, the garden is known as one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world.
Yeah.
So remember, I mean, seeing those big pots that, you know, they had hanging, and then the water came from the river. In the 1900s, greenhouse farmers began looking into hydroponics since they used less water than regular farming. There were also fewer pests that was found in soil. And then in the 20s and the 30s, the term hydroponics was first used to describe the process of growing plants in water. And then, of course, in the 30s, Pan Am, which I don't think is still around as an airline, they grew their own beans and tomatoes and vegetables to feed the crew on the plains. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the indoor growing systems. Now, this is very important because it's a controlled environment. Agriculture means growing food indoors in a controlled environment. It is important to know how each of those areas are affected. For instance, if you look at the controlled environment, it can be in a greenhouse, it can be in a warehouse, or it can be in a home like what I have currently. Growing indoor changes many things. The planting cycle, like we were talking earlier, I can plant all year long, so I don't have to plant in season. Harvest is between 6, 8, 12 weeks, depending on what you are actually planting. And then your weather needs, well, indoors, you're basically controlled in your air conditioning or your heating. Oh, pest control. Pest control, there's no pest controls with the indoor growing. And then the indoor environment is affected by the air temperature, the humidity, and the airflow. You do have to keep your air circulating, because if you don't keep your air circulating, you will start to get diseases on your plants, such as mold. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the hydroponic basic setup. There are many different types of hydroponic systems. Systems are often designed to grow certain plants. Plants have a few basic needs, and that's light, that's water, and that's nutrients. Those are the 3 basic things that you need in your basic setup. Liz, go back to your basic setup. So the things that you need a tank or a reservoir to hold the water. The other thing that you need is a pump. The pump circulates the water to keep the nutrients circulating. You need a growing medium to hold the plants. These are what we call the growing medium. There's all sorts of types of growing mediums. And then also you need light. Light helps the plants to grow, and then the nutrients. The nutrients which feeds the plants. Okay, the function of soil. The function of soil. The function of soil. The soil holds the seeds in place as it begins to sprout. The soil holds the plant in place also, so the root system starts to grow. The soil surrounds the roots with nutrients, and it supplies water to the plant. So that's what soil does. So let's talk about what hydroponics does. Hydroponic growing medium. Now you can have an organic growing medium, or you can have an inorganic growing medium. And basically, some of the same stuff that we use outdoors, like peat moss, is an organic medium that you can use to grow in hydroponics. And then you have, of course, you have rock wool. You can use that also as a growing medium. That's an inorganic medium that you can use to grow. So basically, the difference between the two is the organic medium comes from the plant. It breaks down and returns to earth. Whereas the inorganic medium comes from non-living things such as rocks. And basically, the rock wall or the moss are all what we consider as growing mediums. So there's lots of different types of growing mediums. So basically what I have next is my references, and Cornell University is one of the #1 hydroponics, along with Penn State. There's a lot of different ones that you can look at. Also, I included the extension because extension has hydroponics as well, and they have a lot of different hydroponic clubs that I have been involved with. New York City Sunwork is New York City has purchased equipment for all of their elementary, middle schools, and high schools. That's what a lot of the schools are moving towards, is the hydroponics versus the outdoor growing. But one of the things that we do is we support both. I do both. I do the indoors, and then I transplant it outdoors. And so one of the things I want to show you is some of the roots. That's on, this is the parsley, and you can see the roots that grows, and then there's little hairs that makes you able to transplant from indoors to outdoors. Also, I'm not sure if you can see, I have cucumbers on my wall. I think I lost myself. I'm sorry. I unplugged my camera. Liz, help me. Are you there, Liz?
You're muted, Liz.
I'm sorry. You'll need to plug your camera back in.
Okay, I did.
Uh,
I don't know what happened.
well, I would suggest we keep moving on.
Okay, so basically, that's the end of my presentation. I thank everyone for an opportunity to be able to present hydroponics.
Thanks so much, Janie. Does anyone have any questions for Janie on hydroponics?
Not right now.
Okay.
I
Oh, go
have
ahead.
one. Is it expensive to set up your whole system inside?
No, it's no. The most expensive piece is it's around $600.
Oh, okay.
Right, around $600. But I have a lot of systems in my home because I teach hydroponics to elementary and middle schools.
Oh, that's nice.
And
Oh.
one of the things is there's right now, we have over 150 schools that we provide hydroponics equipment to.
Oh,
And
wow.
also do trainings for as well.
Oh, nice. That's very nice. Yeah.
Janie, where do you get the stuff you put in the bottom of where you're planting the plants? Like, is it rocks or is it?
The nutrients, are you,
Yes.
what
If
do I
you
do?
don't- It's not just water, is it?
No. The nutrients has all the ingredients in on the inside, nitrogen, everything inside that that goes into the system. So all I do is pour this into a bucket of water and then stir it up and then put it into my system.
But how do you find that?
Oh, you can get it online. You can purchase this online.
Oh,
Yes. All the nutrients you can purchase online, and nutrients you can pay a whole lot of money or you can pay a little money for your nutrients. I buy mine through Opcom Farm, and it's very cheap, and it does the job. It really does do the job.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to, oh, you did have a quiz here.
Oh,
Yeah, I had a quiz, and
Quiz.
the quiz was basically what does hydroponic means? Growing plants in water. And then what are the three things that a plant needs? That's light, water, and nutrients. And then the last thing is that true or false, hydroponic system are growing mediums instead of soil, which is true. The growing medium takes the place of soil.
That's great. Well, thanks so much, Janie. We're going to continue on with Bridget with growing strawberries. So Bridget, I'm going to go ahead and advance your slides for you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about strawberries. Unlike my previous speaker, mine are grown in soil. Strawberries are perennials and they're relatively easy to grow. They can fit within small constraints or fill huge gardens. You can even grow them in containers, pots, or pots on a deck, porch, patio, or balcony. An important reason you should consider growing strawberries in your own garden is what you often buy along with the strawberries in stores. You buy pesticides. Commercial strawberries repeatedly rank very poorly on this of most contaminated produce. Even after washing, store-bought strawberries often have residual pesticides on them. So growing strawberries in your own garden allows you to know exactly what you're eating. Next, oh, sorry, no. Back to this slide. I'm going to talk about growing strawberries. Whether you start with seed or plant, successful fruit production comes from successfully growing strawberry plants. All the factors and considerations needed for growing strawberries are choosing your strawberry variety, selecting your planting site, deciding on a planting system, preparing your chosen planting site, planting the strawberry plants, creating a favorable environment, caring for the growing strawberries, harvesting the berries, renovating the berry beds, and preserving the strawberry plants throughout the dormant months. Some quick facts are they need full sun to produce maximum fruit, space them approximately 12 to 18 inches apart. They're self-fertile but require bees for pollination. Once they produce runners, remove some of them throughout the season, otherwise they'll take over your yard. After removing flowers for a few weeks after planting, you can pick fruit later that summer. One June-bearing plant can produce up to 120 new daughter plants at one season. Next. Preparing a planting site. Ensure that the site is free of weeds, grubs, and any soil-borne disease. Once any sod or grass is gone, work 2 to 3 inches of compost into the layer of soil. Add more organic material before planting, especially if the soil doesn't retain moisture very well. Peat, compost, or aged straw and manure are good options. Additionally, organic or inorganic fertilizer can further improve soil quality by being worked down to 6 inches. The pH side of your soil is important. In order to grow strawberries most effectively, the soil needs to be slightly acidic. So therefore, it's a good idea to perform a soil test, which you can acquire either online or through garden supply stores. Choose plants that have large crowns with healthy, light-colored roots. Planting strawberry plants should be done on a cloudy or overcast day or during the late afternoon. To plant them correctly, you need to dig out a hole big enough to spread out the roots of each strawberry plant. In the bottom of the hole, create a mound or hill of soil that is flush with the surrounding soil level. Put the strawberry plant on top of the hill inside the hole so that the crown is at soil level, and spread the roots out down the sides of the hill. Fill in the hole and ensure that the soil level is even with the middle of the crown. Planting too shallow may cause the roots to dry out before they establish, and planting too deep can also damage growing strawberries. Once the plants are planted, press to firm the soil around the roots and then water thoroughly. There are different strawberry types that need specific care regimens. If you have decided to grow strawberry plants, you probably don't want to wait to reap the fruits of your labor. But it is important, especially for June-bearing strawberries, to treat them differently than ever-bearing strawberries and day-neutral strawberries. All types of strawberry plants will produce better in subsequent years if all their energies are devoted to establishing themselves and producing healthy runner plants in the first year. To accomplish this requires a feat of delayed gratification. To have the strongest plant in subsequent years, you have to remove all the flower buds in year 1. Without flower buds, you won't be able to enjoy harvesting strawberries, obviously, but you'll get more and better berries beginning in year 2. For June-bearing varieties, you can train the runners to follow a specific pattern, or you can allow them relative freedom in a matched row system. In general, all strawberry plants will produce best when limited to a density of approximately 5 plants per square foot. Too many strawberry plants will have the same effect as weeds would, reduced yields or smaller strawberries. Of course, any and all weeds should be removed. For day-neutral and ever-bearing strawberry plants, the removal of buds and runners should occur until July 1st of year 1. They naturally don't put out as many runners as June bearers. Instead, they focus their energy on producing multiple strawberry harvests. You may end up getting a small harvest with ever-bearing or day-neutral varieties, depending on your climate. The main harvest will come in the second year when all runner plants and all the runners which were well rooted before August will produce strawberries. Okay. Now we come to the next slide, please. Well, this all more or less goes to the same issue of selecting plants, planting, how to plant them correctly. But it is also just as important to note that there are 3 different types of strawberries, and to pick the right strawberry for you, if you will. There are 3 main types of strawberries: June-bearing, ever-bearing, and day-neutral. Some people consider ever-bearing and day-neutral varieties to be the same thing, but they're actually different. June-bearing strawberries produce a large concentrated crop in mid-June to early July. Ever-bearing produce 2 crops, one in early summer and the second in early fall. Day-neutral produce fruit throughout most of the growing season. Of the 3 types, June-bearing strawberries produce the largest yield per season, but in a relatively short period of time. Fungus causes the most common strawberry diseases, verticillium wilt or verticillium rot, and will end fruit production by killing growing strawberries. Since there is no practical way to kill the fungus once One factor to consider when picking strawberry plant variety is susceptibility to verticillium fungus. This infection sets in. The prevalent disease is best prevented by obtaining and planting strawberry plant varieties that are certified to be resistant to verticillium wilt. Strawberries that do especially well in Virginia are All-Star, Delight, Brown Marble, Early Glow, Honey Oil, Late Glow, Ozark Beauty, Red Sheep, Sunrise, Short Crop, Fruit Star, to name some. Choosing where to grow is also very important. Strawberries love sunlight and need full sun to produce the largest yield. They need, at a minimum, 6 hours of sunlight a day, direct sunlight a day. So it's best to select a site that's clear of other tall or shadow casting trees or plants. That also allows strawberries to thrive because they are not interfering with the tree root system and don't have to compete for water needs. While you're able to grow them in most soil conditions, strawberries actually prefer a sandy loam that is deep and contains very high amounts of organic matter. Extra compost, peat moss, and some sand or grit can be added to your selected site to create the best environment for growing strawberries. Potting soils usually have sufficient compositions if you are planning on planting strawberries in a container. In that case, add an extra inch or two of fresh compost to the surface of the potting mix. As mentioned, pick a site that has good soil drainage and surface drainage. Although strawberry plants need constant moisture to thrive, the plants will rot if left in standing water due to poor site drainage. If you only have access to a site that has poor drainage or heavy soils, constructing a raised bed for the strawberry plants should facilitate better drainage. The strawberry bed should be elevated at a minimum 6 to 8 inches. Also make sure there is a drainage holes in the bottom if you're using container gardening methods. To successfully grow strawberries, there are 2 particular methods to employ. This is, I think we need to go back. One more. It still goes to how to plant them. I know it's a very long. Okay, the 2 systems I was talking about, one is the matted row system. It's for growing strawberries that are typically the June bearing ones, and it works well for any cultivar that sends out a lot of runners. To grow strawberries with this system, set the plants about 24 inches apart in rows about 4 feet apart. Allow the runners to spread freely and root at will within the row to form crisscross matted row about 24 inches. The other system I mentioned is the hill system, also known as the mound system. The hill system is for growing strawberries and is most commonly used for day-neutral strawberries and ever-bearing strawberries. To grow strawberries with this system, you start with a mounded hill of soil about 8 inches high and 24 inches across. Extend this mound into a row as long as you like. Set 2 rows of plants per hill in a staggered pattern, with each plant being 12 inches from the other plant. And if you have multiple rows, space them about 4 feet apart. The upside of the hill system is there's easier access, and it typically yields a higher quantity of berries, while the matted row system usually produces a higher total number of strawberries. Okay. Next. I think we covered the planting depth. Here are some quick facts for the various seasons. Obviously, in spring, you plant them, pinch off the flowers. Summer, remove the runners, water, remove older plants. In fall, you just clean up the field, remove some of the dead leaves and so on, and mulch for the winter. And in winter, there is not much to do. The plant basically rests. Okay, next. Okay, strawberry plant care. Obviously, the sweet strawberries have many connoisseurs. Birds and slugs and other critters love them too. Birds will inevitably get some of your strawberries. However, you can protect the vast majority of them by covering your rows with bird netting. Additionally, copper ribbon will keep the slugs away. Okay, next. Fungus are is one of the diseases that's very common amongst strawberries. Verticillium wilt or verticillium rot will end fruit production by killing the growing strawberries. As mentioned before, pig strawberry plants that are favorable for conditions in Virginia and that are not susceptible to the fungus. If other verticillium susceptible crops have been grown in the same area during the last 3 years, where you now have your strawberry bed, it's best to choose a different site. The most common of these plants are tomatoes, potatoes, eggplant, peppers, and obviously strawberries. Okay, next. Oh, sorry. Okay, I need to go back one more. Okay, so after a couple of years of planting and caring for growing strawberries, you're ready for harvest. The strawberries should be completely ripened on the plant before harvesting. Most varieties could be left on the plant for 1 or 2 days after the strawberries have gained full color. Ultimately, however, you have to eat one to know if it's ready. Strawberries are somewhat fragile and are easily damaged and bruised. Gentle hands and tender care should be used when picking them from the strawberry plants. To pick a ripe strawberry, release it using the fingernails of your thumb and forefinger to sever the stem directly above the berry instead of pulling on the strawberry itself. Cradle the berry in your palm as you pick it so that it doesn't fall and bruise or get dirty. The cap and part of the stem should still be attached to the berry. You can harvest your berries as often as every other day if you want to maintain ripe, high-quality fruits. Strawberries should be dry when they are picked. Wet berries do not do well with mold and will mold quickly, and unlike tomatoes, will not ripen after being picked. As soon as they are harvested, it is best to place unwashed strawberries in a cool, dry, shady place. Lastly, we have strawberry garden renovation. Renovation is an important part of growing strawberries of the Juneberry variety in the matted row system. Since strawberry plants don't live forever, renovating right after harvest can keep them vigorous for up to 5 years as new runner plants are given the chance to replace old or weakened plants. To renovate, thin the plants in the rows to about 6 inches apart. Then mow the tops of the plants to 1 inch above the crowns. Take special care not to damage the crowns. If the foliage is disease-free, rake the leaves and compost them or incorporate them into the soil. Fertilize with a balanced 10-10-10 fertilizer. Narrow the rows to between 12 to 18 inches by mowing or tilling. A good aggressive renovation effort will see about half of the strawberry plants removed. After plant removal, work the mulch medium into the soil. Strawberries have a shallow root system, so spreading a thin layer of soil around the crowns can help facilitate new root development. Continue to water the plants at least 1 inch per week through September and maintain the planting as weed-free until the first frost. Allow early runner plants to root where they will until your desired row width is reestablished. However, runners produced after September 1st will not have time to establish themselves and survive the winter that can be removed. And that basically concludes my presentation. Here are my references. I also used a little booklet on how to grow strawberries. I did not include a handbook of planting strawberries that I got on Amazon, but really the best resource is the second one, www.strawberryplants.org. Every possible question that you might have can be answered there. Okay.
Thank you very much, Bridget. That was great. Does anybody have any questions on growing strawberries? That's a lot of information and a lot of great advice there, Bridget. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bridget, you said in the beginning that they could produce 120 new daughter plants in a
Yes.
year.
Yes.
Will those baby plants provide strawberries the same year, or will it have to wait till next year for the baby plants?
I cannot answer this question with 100% certainty, but since they are perennials, my assumption is that will be the next year.
Yes, I think it's exciting that strawberries are perennials. You said that one type produces fruit all year, all growing season?
That will be the ever-bearing strawberries.
Ever-bearing. Okay,
Yes.
that was my question. Okay, thank you. That was very good.
Thank you. Well, it sounds like growing strawberries hydroponically is a lot easier than growing them in the ground.
Well, I had one plant in a pot this year, and I had so much fun. Every day when I'd go to my garden, I would pick a couple of strawberries and eat them just in the garden. But so I will keep that strawberry.
Thank you very much, Bridget. And if there's no other questions on strawberries, growing strawberries, we'll go ahead and move on to another edible in our garden that many people in the region do grow if they've got the space and the trellising and support structures is mulching grapes. And Kathy Hurley from Fairfax County Master Gardener Unit is going to discuss that. So Kathy, over to you.
Thank you. I'll be talking about mulching grapes today, and everyone knows grapes are welcome summer treats that can be eaten fresh, processed into jellies, jams, juice, or even ferment into wine. This presentation will include mulching bunch grapes, which are just berries in large clusters. And then I mentioned muscadine wine grapes, which are smaller clusters in your garden, and a little bit on vineyard mulching also. Early season table grapes ripen in midsummer, while the wine varieties don't ripen until late summer. And I'll be going over a little bit more that Janie did on organic and inorganic substances here, which knowing that mulch is great in the right quantity, but can be a handicap to plant growth if it's applied incorrectly. By definition, mulch is a layer of porous material covering the surface of the soil. It's either inorganic like lava rock, gravel, crushed rock, landscape fabric, or it can be organic like ground bark, wood chips, hay, pine straw, sawdust, grass clippings, leaf litter, or composted leaves. Newspaper and other paper can be used, but not always recommended because of the ink in the newspaper. So that covered organic mulches, and then going on to inorganic mulches, they last a long time, but they don't decompose readily. Organic mulches will decay and break down, adding organic matter and nutrients to the soil. Organic matter stabilizes soil structure and feeds microorganisms also. Fresh or succulent material decomposes faster than dry or woody material. Smaller particles break down faster than large pieces. So on this slide here, it shows the advantages of mulching, which really includes conserving soil moisture, which is very important for grapes, and also good air circulation is included in that. On well-drained soils, mulch helps to conserve that moisture and reduce erosion. It also protects the soil from surface runoff and reduces soil compaction. It's important that soil has organic matter, as a rich soil environment is conducive to good root growth, and that's very important for grapes. They do require a soil pH of 5.5 to 7, so a soil test may be needed before planting, which is available from the Virginia Tech VCE Extension. You could request a soil sample kit to send in. Bunch grape roots rapidly grow out several feet in the first 2 years, so working compost or fertilizer into the planting hole would be of little value. You should not put fresh manure or fertilizer in the planting hole. For at least the first 2 years, you should keep an area 1 to 2 inches in diameter around each vine, free of weeds, by hoeing, hand cultivating, or mulching with compost. Black plastic is satisfactory, but does not add to the humus content of the soil. You can add grass clippings 4 to 6 inches deep also. Once established, if you could go back to the slide you were on, I'll finish this up. You can add grass clippings 4 to 6 inches deep. And then once established, the vines will shade out some of the weed growth. Mulching is the preferred management procedure versus chemical herbicides. It also protects plants from cold weather when applied in the fall. Bunch grapes do need frequent and thorough spraying to avoid insect damage and disease. If you're mulching to control weeds, you should use 6 to 8 inches of straw, hay, or wood chips, taking care to keep chips at least 6 inches from the vine trunk on all sides. Or you can do the weeding yourself, which could be time consuming. Weeds grow prolifically in April and compete with grapes for nutrients. Mulch will cut down on the weeds and eventually break down to provide nutrients to the soil. You could mulch anytime. The greatest effect is in May after the soil warms up, because the soil temperature is very important for grapes also. You reapply the mulch periodically and pull it away from the trees at the end of August or early September. Mulching for the winter is best in November after several frosts occur. The vines will then harden off for the winter. Mulch can improve beneficial microorganisms that fight pathogens. It provides essential nutrients needed for growth. Once the mulch breaks down, nitrogen, potassium, and some minor elements are made available for plant growth. If the mulch has a high carbon to nitrogen ratio like sawdust and wood chips have, a nitrogen deficiency could be caused. So bacteria that breaks these materials down use nitrogen, so then the plant is deprived of that nitrogen. So compost until the materials start to break down, which is 1 to 2 years for sawdust. So you do want to start the process of decomposition. On my next slide, I show the disadvantages of mulching. Oh, I think I switched the order of these. Could I go to on the next slide, with the first being that it may attract pests like mice. It requires annual replenishment. It can deplete or tie up nutrient availability sometimes. It can contain weed seed in there, and it can cause excessive moisture retention, which you don't want to have. As I said earlier, you need to have the right moisture balance there for grapes and the roots. Due to the very deep root system of grape plants, you could say that mulch is not really needed as a rationale for not doing it. Cover crops can be used instead of mulching. And that next slide shows grapes on the vine where mulching would reduce weeds without harming vines. Yeah, these are just showing that one previous slide is just showing the grapes in the vineyard there. And the muscadines would be considered the wine grapes that can range in color from bronze to dark purple. And the next slide is, or back one, I guess, the one where the cover crops are shown. Yeah, there. That shows grapes where mulching would reduce weeds without harming vines. And so this is on the left is a crimson clover cover crop used as a mulch between the rows in the vineyard. And on the right, grass could also be grown between the vine rows. So you're reducing all that mulch that you would need to buy by just planting cover crops. Between the row mulching is beneficial without compromising vine production and quality. Avoid mulch to contact with the vines to avoid potential disease issues. Finely ground bark or a 4 to 6 inch layer of loose weed-free straw can be put in the middle of grape rows between the vines. Cultivation control measures also include a landscape fabric that it's considered geotextile weed barrier, which is porous, so it allows for water penetration, but the weave is very tight, so adult insects can't pass through the weave. It's made from permeable polypropylene, which can be biodegradable or non-biodegradable, whichever you choose to buy. For vineyard sizes, this weed barrier could be put down to reduce the need for hand weeding. This barrier does allow water, air, and nutrients to get to the roots, and that's very important for grape growing, as I said, along with warm soil, which would be aided by any type of mulch. So in conclusion, consider improving the growth and productivity of grapes with mulching. Without management, weeds will compete with the grape crops for light, nutrients, and water, resulting in reduced growth of the vine, poor grape quality, and lower yield. It's an excellent horticultural technique that's beneficial to all plants and particularly useful during dry periods to retain that moisture balance that I talked about. On the next two slides, my resources are listed. At the very end there, and I really like the Clemson site, and I did like that weed management and small fruit crops, which is available locally at the fairfaxgardening.org site that has a nice little article on them. And the second page, I think, would include my North Carolina State one, which I really liked a lot too. That one in Georgia and Minnesota are not really, Clemson and North Carolina are a little bit closer to us geographically, so I was going by them mostly for this presentation, but thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kathy.